adding a justify content, first we need to give a twice width, then we need to understand why we need to use justify content. Giving a twice width compared to these elements to the center div, we need to give a flex2 class, which we have written here. As you can see, flex2, and we have given the shorthand property flex, and we have given the flex go value of 2. So we will add this flex2 to this center div. So I will remove this 1 and I will add 2 and then save the file. And when we refresh the page, as you can see, it's given the twice width compared to these elements, but it's moved to the left side. We need this center div to be positioned in a center. So we will use justify content to center this center div in a main axis. So whenever we use to align item in a main axis, we use a justify content property, and there are many other property which is related to main axis. So you can use to align element in a main axis. So let's understand more about justify content. So here in example.html file, you can see I have created some design, and this is a simple design. I have given the background color to this flex container, and I have given the height of 400 pixel. So you can see the children of the flex container, which is the flex item, how it will be positioned if we use justify content. As you can see, I have given the flex container flex items height of 200 pixel and width of 200 pixels. So you can see when we use the justify content property to our flex container, how this item will align. So let's add a justify content property here. So we will say justify content, and when we say center, and when we save the file, and let's refresh it, as you can see, the items is now aligning in a center but in a main axis position. Because we have given the height of 400 pixel, it is not absolute center, but it is in a center position but in a main axis. There is another property which we use to align item in a cross axis. So with the help of justify content and align items property, we can align our item in a absolute center position. So as you can see, we have given the 400 pixel height to the flex container, and we have given the justify content center value. So the item is now aligned in a center but in a main axis. As I said before, there is a align items property. We will use align items, and we will say align items in a cross axis center position but in a cross axis. Whenever we use to align items in a cross axis, we use align items, and there are other property which we can use to align item in a cross axis. Our desired position for the cross axis is center, and for the main axis is also center, because we want to center the items in a main axis and in a cross axis. So that is how we achieve the absolute center position. So when we refresh the page, as you can see, our item is now successfully aligned in a center position. So there are certain other value for the justify content and also for the align items as well. So as you can see, there is a justify content center value given. If you remove this, and if I say space around, you will see is given the space around these elements. So when I remove this space around with the space between, you will see it gives space between those elements. There is another value which is space evenly. It will give evenly space to each and every element. So there is a flex start value which is by defaultly activated when we don't use justify content. It will act as a flex start. So when we save the file, it will act as a flex start. If you remove this property, it will act as a same because this property is already using the value of flex start by the default. So if you talk about align items, the default value for the align item is a stretch. So if you remove this height and width property from flex items, and when we refresh the page, and if I remove this value and save the file, you can see all the item is now stretched out to the maximum width of the flex container. So why is that? Flex items is taking all the height from the flex container because align items property is defaultly set to stretch. So this value is defaultly set with align items. So if we don't use align items, it will automatically stretch the items with the height of the flex containers. So align items by default is set to stretch, and there is another value which is center, which we already seen it, and we can also position flex end. And if I say flex end, and let me put back the height, and the width, so as you can see, it's given the flex end position in a cross axis. So when we give this flex end to justify content, it will align our items to the right side, as you can see. So we can move our flex item in our desired position by the help of these two properties. So as you can see, if I remove this, it will align the item in a man axis but not in a cross axis because we have added the justify content. And if I say center, it will align the item to the center but in a man axis. So let's remove this and it will back to the flex start. So let's add the justify content to our project, and so let's open up the CSS file. So in the start.css file, we will add a class of justify content, and we'll say dot, we will write JC and justify content center, and we'll say add a justify content property and value will be center. So whenever we use this class, it will align the item in the center position. So this is the center nav, and we will say create a flex container, and this will be the flex container, and now we will add the justify content property. So let's refresh the page. As you can see, is given the center position to the items in a man axis. So let's add a align items property. So here we have given the justify content center property to this class. So let's add align items. So we'll say AI align items, and we'll say hyphen center, and we will add a align items property. The value will be set to center, and we will copy this class. So now let's implement this align item center class to our nav flex container, because we want to align every flex item which is in the flex container of the navigation to be in the center position in a cross axis. So we will add our class in a nav flex container. We'll paste it here, and when we save the file and refresh the page, As you can see, all the flex item is now in the center position in a cross axis. And we have also used the justify content to this center div, and we have learned justify content, and we have also learned about the align items property. So with the help of these two properties, we can align our item in a main axis, and we can also align our item in a cross axis. So that is how we can achieve the absolute center position. So that's it for now, and see you in the next lecture.